Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Brunslick, and I have updates. Okay, so if you listened to last week's episode, you heard me crying like a little baby that I miss vacations. I wasn't actually crying, but I was whining pretty hardcore. Well, update. I have manifested a vacation. You're all going to be so happy for me, right? Okay, so here's the deal. So even after I was talking to Kirby in the Would You Rather, I still was not convinced that he didn't have something like planned to surprise me for our anniversary or my birthday. So there was a Saturday where since then that he was gone. And I, being the worst person alive, decided I was going to I needed to know for sure. Did he have a vacation or not? And I was going to ruin the surprise. So I went into his computer. This is terrible, but whatever. We're happily married, so it's fine. And went on to his Sun Country account because his computer has all the logins. I don't know the logins. And go to my trips. Nothing. There are no trips planned. So then I'm like, okay, well, maybe we're flying Delta. So then I go into Delta. My trips, nothing. And so I realize that mofo actually doesn't have a trip planned like he told me he didn't. So then I had to take things into my own hands. And I started where everyone starts when they're looking for a random vacation is Google Flights. And I found some cheap flights to LA. And I'm like, okay, what can I do in LA? I can go to Disneyland. I love Disneyland. And so then I went into our Marriott's because I'm still on his computer with all the logins. And I find a hotel that we can have points. And I send him a text. He was gone for like 2 hours. And I send him a text being like, okie doke, so we can get to LA for this many Delta points. We can stay in this hotel for this many points. We don't have Disney points, so we're just going to cough up the money there. Thoughts? And the poor schmuck, just in order to love me and support me, had to say yes. He goes, it's still not financially the best decision, but I love you, and this seems important. So we're doing that. So there you go. See, some would say that I am, I don't know what other people would say, a lot of stuff, but I think I just manifested it. I wanted it. I made it happen. I also want to take this moment to teach you a new word that I created. And this is called word hole. Don't be a word hole. So I was at a retreat. None of them are listening, so it's okay. And I don't think anybody would know who it was. So a word hole is somebody who really fixates on a certain word while you are brainstorming something, and they won't stop using the word to get across their point. And so then that word starts to enrage you. Here's an example. This one time I was sitting down with a group of chiropractors, and we were supposed to be coming up with like core values of our team of chiropractors. And somebody got very fixated on the word integrity. And so we were trying to like consolidate and being like, okay, so because we couldn't have like 15 words. We were supposed to have like only 5 or 6. And so we're like, you know what? I feel like integrity. I don't remember what we were trying to like nestle it under. And this person was just like, no, to me, integrity means this. And they kept, and like, so like 15, 20 minutes go by, and this person is still using, like really fighting for this word integrity. And to this day, we were just like, oh my gosh. We still joke about like, please don't use the word integrity, because it was ruined. It was ruined in the course of a half hour. So don't be a word hole, people. So when you're brainstorming on a team, just move on. Use different words. If it feels like the team isn't going with you with things, then maybe try, instead of force feeding like no and fighting for that word, just use a different word. Don't be a word hole. I created that for you. So go ahead, make that, take that and make it grow. especially since my colloquialism from last week, the can is in the garage, it's not taking off yet. I don't really know what it means. My mom messaged me like, what does that even, what would that mean? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what most colloquialisms mean. The sharpest crayon in the box? Is that the one? Is it the sharpest tool in the shed? Is definitely one. I know that one's true. And that's about people being stupid. So I don't know what the can in the garage. I think it's like a secret, like a skeleton in the closet. That can is still in the garage. I'm keeping that. I don't know. Anyways, let's try and make word hole work. We'll grow that. Ironically, this is 100% by coincidence. Where the word hole story happened was at a leadership event that is on my to-dos to tell you about cool upcoming events. So the Pediatric Experience has a team and leadership event in Crystal Lake coming up October 28th and 29th. I will have that link below for you to check out the details. The event was fantastic that I went to last summer or 2 summers ago. Gosh, I don't know. What year is it? It's 2022. Yeah, it was summer of 2021. So it was no reflection on the event that the word hole person became a word hole. Great event, but truly just really funny random stuff that story would come up the same time that I'm promoting that event, saying it was awesome. You should go. I really didn't give this non sequitur as to why that word hole came up. I was at a retreat and somebody was being a word hole. This was just in the last week. I tell you. Can you guys tell when I've had 20 cups of coffee and not enough water? Okay. The good news is today's guest has her shit together. Way more than me. And this was a really good episode. There are some episodes that are very chiropractic, and then there are some that are applicable to multiple different careers, and this is one of them. So Shelli Warren is a team and leadership coach, and she's the host of the Biz Chicks sister podcast, Stacking Your Team. At Biz Chicks Incorporated, she leverages her 26 years of experience leading technical teams to deliver multi-million-dollar projects for billion-dollar brands at Procter & Gamble Incorporated, to now helping small business owners to hire, fire, and inspire an incredible team of high performance. She is also known for her teaching style, her passion to inspire more women leaders, and her ability to say the right thing in delicate situations. That is a strength I do not have. I'm working on it, though. I am actively getting so much better at this. So she lives in Canada. You'll be able to tell that just little accent, where she coaches Biz Chicks clients across the globe and spends her Flow Fridays with her daughters, Danielle and grandbaby Ellie. So we are talking about meetings today and how to have impactful meetings. Being, in my experience, the more and more team that I get, and the more that I am spending less hours a week adjusting and more hours a week just running the business, I realize the importance of meetings and what all the different types of meetings can look like. So you'll hear me complain quite a bit about meetings, but she gives a lot of great advice. So if you are a CEO, if you've got a team, this is an episode that you are going to enjoy. So let's breathe. If you're driving, please keep your eyes open. If you're walking or running, also probably a good idea. Take a breath. Thank you for spending this time with me. I want you to know that I don't take this for granted. And when I am recording a podcast, I imagine that I am sitting with you right now as my friend, and apparently not having a very good conversation because I don't let you talk the whole time. And I'm sorry about that. But I want you to know that I think you are incredible and you are so important. and what you're doing, whether you're a chiropractor or not, is meaningful. And that if you need a friend, you can reach out to me. I want you to know that I've got you, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that you are living your true purpose and feel fulfilled in life, and will laugh along the way. Okay, so here we go. Here is my episode, my conversation with Shelli Warren on meetings.
Tell me more about your podcast, because I rarely have other podcast hosts on.
Yeah. So I have a podcast. It's called Stacking Your Team Podcast, and it is designed for service-based business owners. So those service-based business owners that are growing team. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm fine. Yeah. And so it's the sister podcast of the Biz Chicks podcast. So the Biz Chicks podcast has been around since 2014. And I joined Natalie's team 4 years ago as a team leadership coach. I host a group coaching program. It's called the Leadership Lab. And we launched the podcast because our clients were starting to build teams. And now, so she has a group coaching program. It's called Six Figures Lab. And she works with those service-based business owners that have a minimum of $3,000 a month, trying to get them to 6K in revenues and then 6K in profit and more. The Leadership Lab is designed for existing business owners who have a team of 5 or more, including remote team members. And they come into that group coaching program to learn how to lead a team. So we do everything from, how to be that leader that your business and your team needs you to be. And then I spent 25 years plus at Procter & Gamble. So all of the leadership, project management, leading, like I had teams of sometimes of 60 people or more, very highly technical teams members. So I've taken what I learned there and I just strip it down to make it something more valuable for the small service-based business owner who has a team of 5 or more. But there's definitely women in the Leadership Lab that have 40 or more people on their team. Some of them have multiple locations. Some of them have complementary businesses. So they have a brick and mortar, but they also have an online component to their business. Yeah.
So I have a friend who just started a membership style health clinic. She's not a chiropractor. She's a nurse practitioner. Yeah. And, she was working in a hospital setting for the last 20 years, but now is running a team and running her own clinic. And she's been reaching out to me because I've been in practice 12 years. I'm younger than her, but I've been running a business longer. And, her most recent thing was how did you become a good leader? And I laugh and I'm like, I don't know that I'm there yet. Okay. Do they teach leadership stuff? If you were to go to business school and get an MBA, they have classes on becoming a leader? No. So how do people, is there a way, if you graduate, you're 24, 25 years old and you're okay, within a year, I'm going to have a team of 4 people under me. How do you recommend people shorten the gap of becoming a leader?
Well, a lot of it is self-discovery. So it's really starting to test out, what are you good at? What do you get complimented for? And then what do you feel like your knees go weak when you have to do something? So for most people, having difficult conversations with their team members is what make their knees go weak. Yeah. And it's especially because they just don't have enough experience at it. But things that do boost their confidence is maybe they're really great at welcoming new people onto the team. So they're very much engaged in making sure that first moment of truth when someone joins your team is incredibly wonderful for you and the new person. So it's really looking at what are you really good at? And then what do you know that you're not so great at? And then being willing to be coachable to learn those skills, because people do not go to school to learn how to lead people. They just don't. It's something that you can practice over years. So if you were a volunteer when you were younger, you led a troop of kids, or you worked at your church's Sunday school program. So you were able to really interact with children and really get to know what that teenager's like versus that young adult versus, a small kiddo. But it's really, if you've not had a lot of experience working with various individuals and learning how to get people to rally together towards a goal or an outcome, or learn how to, no, it's her turn now. Like literally teaching people how to wait their turn, or teaching people how to break down a task in smaller components that they can go after in such a way that they're self-motivated to get to the end line. So all those things about leading people, we either learn through teaching, like they have a mentor, or they really watch their own leader and they're learning from their own leader. That can be helpful too, because you're learning what you appreciate about that leader and what you don't appreciate about that leader. And both are incredibly valuable as you're evolving as a leader. Because
do you feel like women in general have different, I don't want to say weaknesses, not strengths compared to like men? Like when you said, like, we really like having hard conversations, is that something unique to women that they struggle a little bit more with than men?
Yeah. So, and the difference between those two sexes really is that men are conditioned to have a difficult situation or be angry with someone, state what's on their mind, and then drop it and move on. Mm-hmm. Women are conditioned to be kind, be caring, share, put yourself in the other person's shoes, never cause a scene, don't rock the boat. That's what we were conditioned as growing up as little girls. So when we get into the world of work, oftentimes women are more concerned about hurting someone's feelings, wrecking the relationship to the point where it's unrepairable, crying, like visibly crying in front of their team or the people they're responsible to. And then also just flubbing it up. Like, I don't know what to say. What am I supposed to do? And so about 6 months ago now, I introduced a new style of podcast every month. There's a new episode every month. It's called Ask Shelli How to Say It. And what I do is I literally walk you through, like the listeners through a scenario, and I give them all the words and the phrases so that they can go and have those adult conversations where they learn to be able to host those coaching conversations in such a way that they're not there to be an emotional wreck. They're there to be the leader and help turn that person's performance around, because that's usually why you're in the difficult situation, is because there was some sort of expectation that wasn't met. And now someone's disappointed, resentful, and at times downright angry, because it created a lot of rework and just created a bunch of constraints in the business that is frustrating for everyone.
Yeah, I was reading, Gary Vee has a book, I think it's called like 12 and a half, and it's like on soft leadership skills. Mm-hmm. And one of them he talked about was candor. Yeah. And how, and like, honestly, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I'm going to be 36 this year. Like I said, I've been running a business since I was 24. And sometimes I think, like, how is it taking me this long to get to where I am? Like, are other people? But so I've never really thought about the word candor, but he has a whole chapter about it. So here I am learning about candor, and he's talking about how, like, giving feedback is really, really important, because so often in the avoidance of, like, not wanting to have these difficult conversations, you don't give the employee the feedback that they need to change. And so then you find yourself in a situation where you're preparing to fire them because they've just not met your expectations for so long. But like, a good leader can, like, have this conversation to let them know, like, give them the opportunity to do that. And so I was like, oh, that is hard. That's really hard to do.
It is hard. There's a recent book that came out a couple of years ago. I cannot remember the author's name, but we could definitely include it in the show notes. But the title of the book is Radical Candor. And what she's doing is she's reinforcing all of that. And I think sometimes in the world of work with women, especially, women can tell themselves a story that they'll say to themselves, well, he should have just known that didn't meet my expectations. He should have known that wasn't on standards. I mean, they could tell by the look on my face that really wasn't what I wanted. So there's all these assumptions that people can read your facial expressions, read your body language, read between the lines, and figure out what it is that you want. And that wastes so much time. And I call that the gray zone, right? Like what we want to do is we want to have black and white expectations and direction for people. Let's get rid of the gray zones, because when those gray zones are there, speculation, that's a sandbox for speculation, because they'll try and figure out what it is that you really want. And they could be totally off the mark, or they could be over delivering, breaking their neck, trying to over deliver when what you really wanted was this. And you would have been delighted to have this.
To some people, like, I feel like I struggle because a lot of times I may not know exactly what I want until I'm starting to get it back. And I'm like, no, I wasn't thinking that. And it's like, I didn't mean to withhold or gatekeep information.
Yeah.
I just was like, no, not that. Now I'm finding out more. So like, do you have just like all of these little meetings with people to make it black and white? Like, is your day just full of meetings?
Heck no. I don't want anyone to come to work every day, whether you're the CEO or whether you're in a leadership role or whether you are on the extended team at a business. No one wants to come to work and spend their entire day in a meeting. It's just not worthwhile. It does not feel worthwhile. So what we want to do is we want to have a combination of meetings and work processes and tools that can really help build self-sufficiency on your team. So the other thing for you, for someone like you, what I think might be helpful for you is if you were to literally talk about your preferences. So when you are delegating something to someone, to describe to them the best that you can about your preferences. So even something as simple as, I want to work this way, not that way. The last time we created something like this, it was broken here. It worked great to this point, but then it just broke. And so as we're looking to, revise that and freshen that up, let's make sure we take into consideration what caused the break, and then let's fix it. So the new version is so much better for all of us because we know there's not that pending doom where we're going to reach this point and then that's not going to work as much as we had hoped it would be. So just describing to people, here's what I'm thinking. I want this, and here's why I think we need it. And here's the people that I think are going to use it. And here's how I think it's going to help people. So based on what we have right now, what do you think we could create that would marry nicely to what we already have, but up-level that experience for the team or up-level that experience for the client? So it's really becoming better at describing what's locked in your brain. Yeah. And if you can draw something out, and you don't need to be an artist by any means, because I am not, but where I used to work at that Fortune 50 corporation, I was famous for just drawing something on a piece of paper and then giving it to someone and having them ask me a few more questions. And then they take the paper and they run with it and they come back with the thing, and it's brilliant. So it's really just about saying, I want this to fit in with this, and that's going to link over to that. And here's what I want to have as the experience or the outcome. So just learning how to describe what you want to the individuals that are going to build it is going to save so much time. And then over time, they're going to realize, okay, when she says this is what she really means.
Yeah. And so like, that's really helpful because I feel like so many entrepreneurs that are excited about building a business tend to kind of fall in that like visionary, right? Like the visionary executor.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's in my head, but I don't really know. And so then what ends up happening is we just do it all because it's easier to just do it than to, describe it. But that, I like that a lot. How do you teach your employees to ask questions back, because that's something I struggle with, where I'll be like, and I haven't tested them or anything like that, but like, I feel like I could do some, like give them a project or that I know they need more information. Like, for instance, like I want you to throw a party, a patient appreciation party. And like, if I haven't given them a budget, I know they're going to need to know, well, how much am I allowed to spend? And so like, and I struggle because sometimes like I'm in this visionary thing and I need them to ask me questions, but then they don't. And they're like, okay, sounds good. And I'm like, you didn't, how do you, can you, is that something you can teach someone?
Sure it is. So the first, in that particular scenario, what would make a wonderful outcome for you and your team is if there is this sense of safety to ask you the questions, even the dumb questions, even the questions that you answered before. Right. We need to set up that dynamic with the team that says,
I was like, yeah, I'm totally safe. And then you said like re-asking a question. And I'm like, oh, that's where I go wrong. I hate repeating myself.
Right. So that's an outcome for you. So that's a goal for you, Lauren, is that you want to create systems, tools, and a communication style where you never have to repeat yourself because your team members have a decision space. You've given them the decision space and the psychological safety for them to act on your request and build and execute something on your behalf as an extension of the brand in a really great way because they know your preferences and they know your boundaries. So one thing that is incredibly frustrating for team members is when they're asked to do something and then the CEO is standing behind them, breathing down their neck, watching and waiting for them to make a mistake where they can course correct them. Or they set up a dynamic where you delegate a task to them or give them a ownership area. And I'm using air quotes here for ownership area, where you think you've given them ownership, but in reality, they don't own anything other than making it happen. So you're not giving them a budget of how much to spend. You're not telling them, hey, I need this done in a week and here's why. You're not telling them, hey, this is going to be something that is going to become a standard here at the practice. This isn't a one-time thing. We're going to create this and this is going to become how we do work. So let's make sure we get input from your peers, clients, and users. Let's make sure the experience is what we intended to. So I think sometimes we can have these visionary moments where we can just say, I want this thing. Can you go make this thing? Or I want you to own this project. And then the person feels really great because you've recognized their potential, you've acknowledged their capabilities, and then they go walk away thinking, wait a minute, what is it that I own here? Do I really own this? And if I'm going to own it and do a bang up job of it, there's some missing pieces to this puzzle. Now the person has to circle back with you. And if they're reluctant to do that because it was a bad experience the last time they circled back with you, or if they're afraid that they're going to show up looking like someone who can't think on their feet and they know you really appreciate people that can think on your feet because you're a person that can think on your feet, then we set up that dynamic where the person's just going to go and try to make this happen and try to win at it, meaning they're going to try to meet all of your expectations. So what we want to do is you want to create decision spaces for people. When someone's going to own something, they need to have a decision space that matches it. And within
what do you
that
mean by decision space?
So within that, so if you were to saying that your example here earlier was you wanted them to create a customer or client appreciation event, within that project that they're going to own and they're going to execute, you need to tell them what your preferences are. And your preferences could be anything from, I want this to happen on a Saturday. I'm prepared to pay $5,000 for this. I would like to feature some of our team members. I want some client testimonials. I want our social media person there to be able to take great action shots that we can use as marketing collateral. I want it to feel festive. And here's what I mean by that. And I would like it to be easily repeatable. So if we're going to buy any assets for hosting this kind of a celebration or a party, let's think about long-term. If we're going to buy some assets, some equipment, some, everything from party favors or cutlery or any of that kind of stuff, let's think about repurposing and reusing these things. So let's not buy, those one-time products that are just going to go in the garbage, because that goes against our own vision here at the practice. We like to look at sustainability. So what you're doing is you're listing out for them what your preferences are, what those boundaries are within that decision space. And then now the person is armed with what they need to go and do an incredible job.
Hey, She Slayers, so many of you connect with my story as a chiropractor because I started all wrong. Years into practice, I had to completely turn it around from being an insurance and pain-based model to a thriving, subluxation-based cash practice. I have a lot of ways that happened, but I am not exaggerating when I say the number one thing I changed was adding CLA's Insight scanning technology. The Insight helped grow our practice from 300 people a week to over 500 a week in the course of 1 year, purely by showing objective findings and providing reports to patients. So many docs I talk to struggle to communicate the why behind a care plan when the patient's pain goes away in a few visits. They struggle to keep patients after insurance stops paying. They don't know how to explain why a kid benefits from chiropractic care, even though they have no symptoms. They don't do progress exams because what am I going to do to show the patient progress? I am telling you, every single thing I just said, my answer to the doc is, are you using Insight scanning technology in your clinic yet? Because it's the solution to all of those issues. If you have questions, the staff at CLA is absolutely incredible and will help answer those questions and help implement this big change into your practice. Click the link below in the show notes as She Slays listeners get preferred pricing and hundreds of dollars off their purchase.
Do you feel like this seems like something that if I was a CEO at a company that had, was a $10 million company, 50 employees, I feel like as a CEO, I would be forced to let go a lot more than when you're this under $1 million company, 5 employees. As a CEO, we get to, even if we say we don't want to, we get to have our fingers in every single decision. And so then we're like, I just don't want to micromanage. But yet it's like, but I have the opportunity to micromanage because, if I had 50 employees, there's no way I would be able to micromanage every decision. Does that make sense? Where it's kind of like, it's a hard thing. It's a hard skill to develop because we don't have to.
Right. But you should be wanting to. This should be a huge driver for you, is that you want to attend less meetings and have less ownership and build and nurture more leaders in your business. Because the more leaders that you have in the business, the less you have to do personally, but the compounded effort of the entire clinic just explodes. So in this particular example of the customer appreciation celebration event, what you could do to help you feel better, and this is all about you, not the team member, but to help you feel better, you could set up, let's say you're giving this person a month, like you've given them a date, like some parameters of the dates you want to do it next month. You could set up a quick check-in every 2 weeks to have this person who is leading this event come and give you an update on where we at. And that's your chance to be able to provide them any feedback and encourage them. Like you want to be able to say to them, oh my gosh, I love this. This is exactly what I was thinking. Have you thought about doing this as well? Right. So it's your way to help guide them through this without feeling overpowering, because I'm sure you've all been there where you've built something, you've created something, and the day later or at the 11th hour, the leader comes in and goes, no, Yeah, I don't like that. I want this moved this way. Your team members' heads, your team members' heads literally explode off their shoulders when you do those things to them. So what you want to do is you want to give them the ownership with the decision space attached to it, with all the details of what that decision space is. And then set up and agree as adults, you're going to meet at this point and this point of the project journey so that you can feel better about the direction they're going with the project, and also give them some feedback and encouragement along the way. And that way, the more you go through that process, the more trust you're going to build with them. They're going to start trusting you more. And you're going to be way more encouraged, Lauren, to give people bigger ownership areas. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to move from an event, you're going to move from that to something way bigger, because your team is going to prove to you what they've got. Like they're bringing it. They want to bring it. They want to do everything it is to be able to knock your socks off. But what they also want is this room to breathe. Yes. And be creative, because they're creative too. And they're also bought in on this. Like this is their place of work. This is where they come to provide worthwhile work. They want to showcase what every team member has and feel that level of collaboration. So let them do what you hired them to do, even when it's uncomfortable for you.
Right. And that's it. It's super uncomfortable because it's like, but what if their end product isn't as good as what my end product would have been? So that's where I just keep the employees from growing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's when, I talk about this all the time on my podcast, but what I'm really here, I think my whole purpose in life is to help leaders be the leader that their business and team needs them to be, but to also realize that part of their role is to help their team stop thinking like employees and start thinking like business owners. Like
every entrepreneur says that's what they want. And then we go and act completely differently. Like we're like, I want them to take ownership. I want them. Mm-hmm. And I think you've done a really good job of giving very, very good examples as to how you can switch that mindset for them. Okay, let's talk about meetings. So, because you've talked about how one of the better ways to empower them is to just like set a time where you're going to meet. So are there different types, when you're saying meetings, what do you mean by that? Like, what's the difference between like, hey, do you have a few minutes to chat before we start seeing patients? Like, is that okay? Or should it be like, we're going to meet every Wednesday at this time? How do you like go about different types of meetings in that?
Well, first of all, let's remember that there's a full suite of meetings that you could have in your business at the appropriate times. So what we don't want to do, we never want to host a meeting just because we're hosting a meeting. That is suicide for you and everyone else on your team. What we want to do.
You mean like, so I'm so sorry that I wanted. So we have like a weekly team meeting?
Mm-hmm. Gold star.
Yes.
For the team.
But that's just having a meeting for a meeting.
Just having a meeting because you think you're supposed to, without an intention.
Okay.
Without an agenda, without a real purpose, and where you invite all your team members there when they really don't need to be there. And then when you attend every meeting, when you know you don't really need to be there.
Okay.
That's not the team dynamic that we want. So at BizChicks, I like to encourage our clients to think about meetings in two different ways. We have touch points, right? And touch points could be you're literally walking out to the car parking lot with a team member and you take the advantage, or they take the advantage to ask you a quick question. That's a touch point. That's you showing up face-to-face, eye contact with someone in your team, and you're helping them. You're providing them assistance. Those are wonderful touch points to have. Meetings can be anything from a daily huddle where you are literally standing up I love the stand-up daily huddle because it will inevitably make those shorter, right? We want to get those to 15 minutes or less, preferably 10 minutes. So those daily huddles, they're really designed to be able to have a quick, concentrated conversation with key people that are running your operations. And you're literally saying to people, okay, everyone has a few minutes on the go. We're starting with you, then you, then you, then you, then you. What's up? What's happening? You want to hear from your admin team. We have a phone repair person coming in today at 10 o'clock. Here's my plan to be able to cover the phones and have a backup system for when those lines are down as the technician's there to repair them. You want to hear that. You also want to hear from your associate. Hey, I'm putting my vacation in for today. Just letting you know I'm requesting it for 3 months from now. Just a quick heads up on that. Someone else that has, that's looking after your supplies may be able to say, hey, I noticed this morning when I was doing inventory, we're running low on this. Just want you to know that's my priority today. I will reorder it. If I can't reorder, I will get in the car and I will go and get it from the supply store and bring it back and restock today. Like those daily huddles, it's all about what are the potential fires that could erupt today and what's our plan of action to make sure it doesn't happen. So it's what is it that you need to know today to help you be the highest performer in your role that you have. That's what a daily huddle is. 15 minutes or less. It's standing up and it's really giving that eye contact and the earring, you're hearing each other voice whatever their concerns are for the day, and then you move on, you go about your day. Having a weekly team meeting is a wonderful idea for you as a CEO to show up. However, you can develop a leadership team so that you're only going to call it the first 10 minutes of that meeting. And then you have a leadership team member that takes over the rest of the agenda.
Hi, friends. I wanted to take a quick break from the episode to make sure you all know about the cool stuff we have happening over on Patreon. This is a platform where I can offer you extra content, behind the scenes interviews, quick trainings, and exclusive trainings answering your exact question live, back to back with me. It's a way for me to more directly interact with you and post some fun things that would never be in the normal weekly episodes. To check out what we're doing and to sign up, click the link in the show notes.
So that you're buying back that time and your team learns how to maximize your time when you're there. If they know Lauren's only here for the first 15 minutes of the meeting, what do we want to make sure that we get her point of view on, that we get her perspective, or we get her alignment on? When we have that, she can leave. And then Hillary, our lead, our clinic director, is going to take us through the rest of this meeting. And those meetings, we want to get down to a half an hour or less.
Okay.
So the goal is always to be incredibly effective, have the right people there, and to always have an intention for those meetings. Because the best meetings are the ones where something gets done. Those are the favorite team meetings, is when you go to any kind of a meeting where something actually gets done. We've created something. We've solved a problem. We've made a decision. We've moved this project forward. And people know the direction. They know what their next best step is. Those are the most effective meetings you can have. And by the way, as a CEO, you don't need to be at all these meetings, Lauren.
Right. So what do you do? Okay. So currently I have 12. I think I'm one of the 12, I think. So we have a weekly team meeting where all of us, all 4 doctors, all 7 CAs, and my husband, who's behind the scenes, sit down. So it tends to be an hour, and it's funny because on days where we really don't have much that we're accomplishing, it tends to be an hour. And then on days where we have a lot we're accomplishing, it tends to be an hour. And, we try and balance, there's certain things that need to be reported. So every week we report on okay, here was last week's numbers. Here's this, here's this. And, but then we try and start the meeting before we jump in of what's the good news? So we spend a couple minutes talking about that. And then, how do you cut down on a meeting? Because I feel like there's just all this filler. How do you cut down on the unnecessary? Because I feel like it's the niceties is what easily gets cut. Like I tend to communicate more. I hate using this phrasing, but like a man. So like I would love if we could take this hour meeting and we cut down all of the niceness. And it's just like, here's the problem. Great, good. But then I come across like a jackass. And that's not what my team of like almost all women like.
Yes. So this is a leadership team meeting that you're hosting, and you could have a goal, and it's on people's calendar as an hour, but the goal is to get it done in 45 minutes and still provide those niceties at the very beginning. That is really the foundations of your culture, because it always starts with your leadership team meeting or your leadership team members, and then that trickles out across your clinic. So we don't want to come in and have that, like that military, just the facts, ma'am. Right? We don't want to have that kind of a style of a team meeting. We want to have those niceties, but at the same point, we want to be able to have a time, like an actual window of time set aside for that. And if you feel like we're getting into like things are starting to really drift out of that time, you can always say, okay, time out. We need to move on to the next thing. But Lauren, you're going up first next week at our leadership team meeting, because I know you're bursting with something to tell us. Or if you can't wait till then, get on our Slack channel and tell us what it is that you're so excited to be able to share with us. So give them a couple of options to do that. And then the other thing that we want to do to really maximize our efforts together is decide what you're supposed to be there for. So what's the number one priority? So you're doing this on I like to call these drum beats, right? So is it Thursday at 3:00, you're hosting a leadership team meeting. That's the drum beat. But when you get there, and even as a reminder that's coming to you in your calendar the day before, you want to tee up to your leadership team member, hey, we're having, our drum beat tomorrow for our leadership team meeting. And this particular team meeting, our priority is to do this. So you're telling them what's the key thing we're coming together. And it could be the priority is to review the budget for the next quarter and I'll sign off on it. Or the priority for this particular meeting that we're having is to decide, are we terminating this person or not? And if we're not, what's the performance improvement plan going to be for him? So tell them in advance. So now their brains can start cooking. Now they can start fleshing out their own ideas so that when they get there, you're not wasting time talking about it. You come in to be able to do something about it, because we know this is our number one priority for our gathering today. And if you reach a consensus, you make a decision, you create the thing, then you now have permission to move on to the next piece of the agenda and move forward with other things that you knew that you wanted to get at. But at least you can know at the end of that meeting, your number one priority got handled.
Yep. Okay. So what would be your advice? So let's say that once a week, the CEO sits down with the clinic director, like the main front desk admin, to get a report on like things going on. What would you do if, for instance, mine, I feel like loves this one-on-one time with me. Like it, she feels important or what, I don't know what, I don't want to put words in her head of like what, but like, what do you do when you have someone who's just kind of breezy through this and bringing up stuff that like, and I just wanted to give you a heads up that this is going on, where you're just like, I didn't know. How do you train someone, like get to the point again without being super rude and offensive?
Yeah. So one of my little tools I love to be able to use in a million different ways is good, better, best. Okay. And this is a style of giving someone feedback where you would say to her, I love our time together. And I know that you do too. And I think we've been doing a good job of hosting these weekly meetings. Let's take a few minutes and talk about what we could do to make our time together better. Here's what my preference would be. And I'm dying to hear what yours would be too. Right? So then you tell them, I'm meeting with you for a half an hour every week. And I can't wait to hear about this, this, and this. And they can be, money, systems problems, wait list. How many people are on a wait list this week? You decide what those 3 things are. And then you say to her, what would make this time with me better for you? Let me hear what your top preferences would be. And then she may say, I want to be able to come and tell you what my biggest challenge is this week and have you coach me on that. Or I want to be able to come and tell you, how the rest of the admin team, what their priorities are for the week. There's a big gold star for that one, right? Because that's important for her. And it's also incredibly valuable to you to know as well. So then as you walk through that, then give that a couple of weeks, see that styled agenda. And by the way, she needs to have the agenda to come to these weekly touch points with you. It's not you. You're not creating the agenda. You're not running this meeting. She is. This is how she steps up and shows you how she's leading in her role. She is prepared every time she comes to this meeting because it's predictable. It's on a drumbeat. It's every Thursday at 10 a.m. for a half an hour. She knows it. You know it. She comes prepared for it. And then once you try that out for a few weeks, then you circle back with the question that says, okay, when we first started this, we were pretty good at it. And, here's where we were doing pretty well at. Then we had that conversation where we moved it over to being what's better for you and me. Let's take a few minutes and figure out what would be best for us and the clinic with the time that we have together. So you see what you've just done? You've helped her. You've acknowledged what she's done so far, which is really good. And here's what's feeling good about you. And then you've shifted her over into what and where could she influence this interaction with you to make it even better. And then you're moving her over into thinking like a business owner as to what would be best for the clinic and the team.
Shelli, I don't want to do all this stuff. I just want to make money.
I know, but this is part of being a leader, Lauren. So it's that whole idea of you can't wish for things to come into place. You can describe it. You can dream about it. You can cast your vision. You can describe every bit of what that vision would be. But then you also have to back it up with action. And these things can feel incredibly like heavy lifting at the beginning. But once you have your admin leader where she knows how to do this, guess what? Her next expectation is that she uses that same style of communication and that same way of moments, teachable moments and she's going to share that across all of her admin team. And now there's a goal. She has a goal to be able to have this wonderful ripple effect with everyone that she's responsible to within the admin department of your clinic. And now she feels ownership. Okay, here's my ownership area and here's my decision spaces. Lauren just told me that we just worked through this. We fell down, we scraped our knees, we dragged our knuckles on the floor, the two of us trying to learn this stuff together. And now we're to a point where we both feel really good about it. Like we've really stretched ourselves to learn that's good, better, best. And we've used a practical experience, which is our one-to-one every week. And now I have been given the opportunity to go and teach this to everyone that I'm responsible to. And we are going to become an incredible admin department because of it. And she's going to be able to leave her stamp on the business within that business function and feel really good about having that impact.
Yep. Okay. Here is a tricky one. Maybe it's not tricky. I don't know. A lot of chiropractors work with their spouse. Whether they're both chiropractors or like in my instance, my husband is like marketing, finance, HR. Sometimes it's the man's the chiropractor, the female's that role. Yeah. And do you have advice for couples of like running a meeting? I mean, I put air quotes, but it shouldn't be air quotes of like, what's your advice for a couple that needs to have a meeting and like, how do they keep boundaries and like conversation, all of that?
Part of it is you both need to have a defined role to play in each of those scenarios. So I like the idea that you both have roles within the clinic. They all have a title. I'm sure you're all both on the org chart. I'm sure you're responsible to specific people that you're guiding and giving daily direction to. I hope it's less than 5. I always love to have our clients have less than 5 or less people reporting to them directly. Okay. Right. I've seen some org charts where it's a flat organization, meaning the owner and the CEO, everyone reports to her. And then she's wondering why she's so exhausted and burnt out, right? We want to be able to we want to divide up the responsibility to coach and lead other people in a way that provides harmony for the business and the clinic owners, not where it's creating just overwhelm for them. So you're going to have these defined roles. The other thing that's going to have to happen is an adult conversation that says, hey, hubby, here's the deal. When we're in a meeting, this particular meeting, you are the owner of this meeting. You're the one facilitating it there. I'm there to engage and offer insight when you ask me for it.
Then that may be different than the style of communication that happens when you're deciding where your family's going out to eat.
Yes.
Completely different communication style than most husbands and wives have.
Well, and the difference is you're not at work, you're at home. Anything goes at home. Mm-hmm. Anything goes at home. But when you're in the workplace, the one thing that we, as the owner and as a spouse or life partner of an owner, you have to remember that everyone's watching you both. They're watching you both, and they're trying to learn from you both. And if you have people on your team that are, thirsty for gossip and drama, they're going to find it between the dynamics of you and your life partner. So having that adult conversation that says, hey, here's the deal. When we're at work, I want to be able to defer to you in your zone of genius and in your areas of expertise. I will always defer to you. I may have my own opinions and I might have my own experiences, but what I want to be able to showcase to our team is that I'm going to give you the floor first. You will have the floor first because this is your zone of genius. And if you turn to me and say, hey, Lauren, what are your thoughts on this? Believe me, I'll have thoughts for you, but I will always give you the floor first. And then you want to have that be very reciprocal. And what you're doing every time you commit to that style of presence, that style of communication in front of your whole team, you are teaching your team how to treat people with dignity and respect, even when you're married to them. And even when you can flip them the bird at home, you're not going to do that at work. Because you're wanting everyone to be professional. And it starts with you. And it starts with that relationship that you have with your life partner. So just remember, people are watching and wanting to learn from you. And they're also wanting you both to succeed. They want you both to love what it is that you do. And they want you both to stay together. Like they really want this. They do want it.
Nobody wants to feel like the kid in the car where mom and dad are clearly fighting. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yes, no one wants that. And when you have a business where both spouses have key leadership roles, what that does is it automatically enforces, like it really does make it prevalent and a high priority for you to up level your communication style with each other so that you can role model and demonstrate to your extended team how to interact at work with peers and colleagues on a professional level, regardless of the relationship you have outside of work. Because you can also bet that some of your associates may have gone to university together. They may have done their initial training at a particular hospital together. So they're beer buddies on the weekend. They play squash every weekend, or they belong to the same running track. What we don't want to do is have that social relationship muddy the waters of what the relationship is at work. So what you're doing, you and your own life partner, is you're demonstrating to those people that have these social relationships how to behave at work in a really wonderful professional way.
Yep. Are virtual, and because you've said like in person multiple times, are some of these meetings okay to be just on the phone? Like I'm not in clinic every day. And so like my main clinic director and we meet on the phone.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is that
absolutely
why she lingers maybe?
Well, we want to be able to give people FaceTime, and you can do that in person is always best, or you can do that through like what we're doing right here on Zoom, or you can record videos on Slack. What I'm trying to say here is you need to have a mix of audio conversations, voicemail conversations, Voxer, Slack audio conversations. And then you also need to have a set time, preferably on a drumbeat, where they know that they're actually going to see your face. Because when they see your face, that's the bonding moments of those touch points, where they can see your facial expressions, they can see your body language, and it compounds the feedback that you're giving them. Like they can see, oh, she's pretty serious about this. Or they can be able to see, oh, wow, look, she's so happy for me. Like they're people, they're humans. They can sense all these things. So let's make a mix of absolutely, let's be effective on your Slack or your Voxer or, whatever, Monday.com or whatever it is that you're using to be able to run your team. Let's do audio stuff there, and we can do pre-recorded video stuff there. But let's also have on our calendar predictable with a drumbeat that says this particular meeting is going to be in person. Or this particular meeting is going to be, I'm going to take you out for lunch. Like every quarter, you would take out your admin leader out for lunch. Let's mix it up a little bit so that they get different experiences with you, so that the person that lives in another state, she knows that her only like conduit to you isn't just Slack or Voxer or or a cell phone. That there are times that you're creating time for this person to show up on a Zoom call with her. And it doesn't have to be every call, but you definitely want to have those planned for.
Well, what I like is it's almost taking so we don't use any Voxer or like audio messaging at all. We just use like Microsoft Teams in type, or we're talking on the phone. And I think if I created this third way, or we meet in person. If I created this additional way that she could offload a more complicated situation that she needs advice on, it may not be super pertinent. Like, hey, I need to get on the phone with you today, but like, hey, we have this patient, they're moving out of state. Are you okay with me breaking our policy on refunds? And she can put it out there talking. And then I can, when I'm done with my workout or whatever, listen to it and record something back. That is a form of communication we don't have that I think would be really, really helpful. Because right now she'll be like, hey, do you have 5 minutes that we can get on the phone later today? I have something. And I'm like, I don't know my date. Now, whatever. Oh, I like that. Okay. One of my final questions for you, one of my final ones. I get bored with our like meeting agenda probably twice a year. I just feel like I'll read a book and I'll be like, okay, now we're going to follow Simon Sinek's recommendation for a team meeting. Is this okay? Or do you have like a specific agenda that you're like, no, this is what it should be all the time that works the best?
I think people appreciate predictability, and there's ways to deliver each of those agenda items without it being boring. So one of the ways that you can deliver an agenda item is switch up who's delivering it, like who's facilitating, who's talking, who's got the floor. Switch up who is delivering, because what's interesting for a team is to be able to see other people's leadership styles and learn from other people's way of communications. So it doesn't always have to be you or one of your associates leading the different aspects of an agenda. Switch it up, give everyone a chance. You can also one of the things I used to do all the time was I would create a schedule of who is going to lead our team meetings for the month. So this month, it's Stephanie. Next month, it's George. So George knows he's on the bench, right? He's warming the bench for next month. So he's going to watch what Stephanie's doing and think to himself, what could I do to bring my own flavor to this?
Yeah.
So it takes the heat off that one person that has to always be leading these meetings. And then it's fun. It's fun to be able to see other people's different personalities and their styles of how they're delivering these meetings. But if you learn something new, right? Because one thing that great leaders are, leaders are readers, and leaders have the curiosity to always continually want to be learning. But what we don't want to do is create this sense with our team that says, oh my gosh, she's reading this book. Get prepared. This is going to be a flavor of the month next quarter or something.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. No.
Yeah. So what you want to be able to do is say, hey, I've read this book and I found this new thing. Here's one piece that I thought was really exciting that I thought we might want to play around with. And you could say to one person who is leading specific types of meetings, you could say to them, how about taking that and trying it out for a couple of weeks? Like, you can try it in a different department. You don't have to try it across your clinic. You could take that new thing that you've learned and then try it out in a small way, or you're just going to try it with your own leadership team meeting and get the feedback about that.
I have learned a lot. And like I said, sometimes I just wonder, like, should all of this seem so like groundbreaking of like, wow, how did I do this for 12 years without, where can people get more of you and your leadership advice and your business advice? Like, I love what you have to say on things.
Well, I would love to invite everyone to tune in to the Stacking Your Team podcast, which we've been hosting now for over 4 years. We just celebrated 300,000 downloads. We're super excited about that. And I know that you too, Lauren, you just hit a huge milestone in downloads as well.
Yeah, we had 200,000, I think 2 or 3 months ago. It was fun. It is exciting.
It is exciting because as podcasters, especially someone who does a lot of solo episodes, it can feel like you're talking to the air. So knowing that people are tuning in is a wonderful, wonderful validation.
You really like me.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to encourage you to come and tune in to the Stacking Your Team podcast that airs every Tuesday without fail. And I mentioned to you that we have a particular type of episode every single month. It's Ask Shelli How to Say It. So, and people love those episodes. They literally write things down verbatim, and then they go and they use those as scripts to have conversations with people. So I invite you to check it out. And I'm just looking forward to being able to help more people feel better and more confident about how they lead in their businesses. And I want to encourage everyone that, you didn't go to school for this. You're a healthcare professional that has an incredible credentials to be able to provide the services that you do. And that's wonderful. That's what you put your effort into it. So it doesn't matter if your business is a year old or 12 years old, like yours is. Along the way, you're going to have to pick up some of these additional skills that are really going to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. She Slayers, go listen to the podcast, Stacking Your Team. Yep. We'll have that in the show notes so you can easily find it. Shelli, thank you so much for your time.
It was wonderful getting to know you, Lauren.
Yeah. And you I love it because it sounds like you had done your homework. She knew I was working on a home, and I'm like, oh, I actually am at my cabin right now. Thanks for asking. So, all right, She Slayers, until next week. Bye.